Hello everyone, today we bring you the inspiring story of Ethan, a small town boy chasing big city dreams, facing heartbreak, and finding the true meaning of success. This emotional journey will touch your heart and remind you that real success is built on honesty, kindness, and a pure heart. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more heart-touching and motivational stories. Ethan was a boy from a small town. A town with no tall buildings, no big shopping malls, and no shiny cars. Life there was simple. Mornings began with the rooster's crow, days passed with the scent of the fields, and evenings faded away with the setting sun. But inside Ethan's heart lived a dream too big to fit in the quiet streets and dusty roads of that little town. He would often look out of his bedroom window and whisper to himself, "One day I'll go beyond the borders of this town. I'll go where there's light, where success is, and where a new world is waiting for me." Ethan's childhood was ordinary, but his dreams were extraordinary. His home was an old wooden house built by his father's hands. In front of it was a small garden where his mother watered the flowers every evening. They had little money, but they had love, and that love gave him courage and fueled his desire to move forward. Ethan's town was so small that everyone knew each other. If a stranger came to town, by the next morning everyone would be talking about them. Life was simple there, but opportunities were rare. After school, most kids either worked in the fields or found small jobs in local stores. Most people believed that life was just this, to be born, to work hard, and to grow old in the same place. But Ethan was different. He was obsessed with books. After school, he would head straight to the town library, where a few old but valuable books were kept. He read stories of successful people, how Edison kept inventing light bulbs, how Lincoln rose from poverty to become president, and how Walt Disney turned his dreams into reality. "If they can do it, why can't I?" he would often tell himself. Ethan's closest friend was Mark. Mark was always cheerful and knew Ethan wasn't like other boys. One day, jokingly, Mark said, "Ethan, your dreams are so big that this town might collapse under their weight." Ethan laughed and replied, "Maybe, but one day this town will be proud of me." Mark often reminded him, "Remember, big dreams aren't easy. Big dreams come with big scars." Ethan would always smile and say, "I'm ready for the scars, as long as I reach my destination." At night, when the whole town slept, Ethan would lie on the roof and stare at the sky. The countless stars seemed to be calling to him. He would whisper to the sky, "One day I'll shine as bright as you, just a little more time." His father often told him, "Son, it's good to dream, but to make those dreams real, you have to work hard." Ethan would nod and say, "Yes, Dad, I know. I'm ready to work hard." Ethan had a fire inside him, but no resources, no money, no big connections. But he refused to give up. At school, he always stayed ahead, worked hard, and learned something new from every opportunity. Even his teachers knew this boy was special. One day, his teacher, Mr. James, called him after class and said, "Ethan, there's something special in you. Remember, you can be the hope this town needs." Those words were carved into Ethan's heart forever. Every day, Ethan took one small step closer to his dream. He read about New York, learned about successful people, and even hung a small map on his bedroom wall with a bold note written in red, "One day I will be there." His mother often said, "Son, there's a shine in your eyes that tells me you're going to do something big." Ethan would smile and reply, "Mom, you'll see, one day I'll change everything." But not everyone understood his dreams. Many villagers would laugh and say, "Ethan is a dreamer," but dreams are just dreams. Ethan never paid attention to them. He knew that when your dreams are big, the road is always tough, but never impossible. One day, while sitting in the library after school, he read a line in a book about success. "Big dreams are born in small places, but courage is what makes them real." Ethan closed the book and said to himself, "I'm ready. Whatever it takes, I will reach my destination." The first time Ethan saw the lights of the city, a strange spark lit up in his eyes. As the car turned off the highway and entered the main avenue, the tall, glowing buildings covered in neon lights, the shiny cars rushing through the streets, and the endless motion of life all around made his heart race. He was a simple boy from a small town, a town where the only lights at night were the stars, and the days showed him nothing but the same old streets and familiar faces. But this city felt like another world, a new world where every dream could turn into reality. Ethan's breath grew heavy. As he stared out of the car window, he forgot for a moment everything he had left behind to come here. He had left his home, his childhood friends, even the smile of his mother, the one she gave him every morning when she woke him up. But his heart carried only one emotion, ambition. He wanted success. He wanted to turn his dreams into reality. He wanted to show his small town that yes, he could do it. When the car stopped at a busy intersection, his eyes wandered. Gigantic billboards with faces of successful people, advertisements with perfect smiles, and crowds of people walking with confidence. Everything around him seemed to whisper that here anything was possible as long as you didn't give up. Ethan's mind was filled with the sketches of his dreams. Since childhood, he had been crazy about art, painting, singing, writing, creating anything his heart desired. But in his town, his passion was nothing more than a waste of time. "You can't fill your stomach with this," people would often tell him. And every time, he would quietly swallow their taunts and write his dreams down in his little diary. But today, standing in the heart of this city, it felt like those dreams were just a few steps away. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small folded paper, a list he had written the night before he left town. Turn my dream into reality, make a big name, make my family proud, and above all, prove that dreams do come true. With a determined smile, he stepped into the city streets. The streets were alive with noise, as if every sound was calling out to him. Somewhere outside a cafe, soft music played. On another corner, young musicians strummed their guitars, filling the air with melodies. The city felt alive, like it was breathing. For a moment, it all felt like a dream. But then, a cool breeze brushed against his face, and he clenched his fist, reminding himself that this wasn't a dream. This was real. This city was his now, and he belonged to it. That night, when he finally reached his tiny rented room, the space felt empty and silent. But outside the window, the city lights gleamed as if whispering to him, "This is just the beginning, Ethan, just the beginning." Lying on his bed, he closed his eyes and made himself a promise. "I won't give up. No matter what happens, I will find my place. And this city will remember me." In the quiet of the night, the city lights poured into his room, shining softly across his face, as if they were ready to witness the moment his dreams would start turning into reality. This moment was only the beginning of the story of a small town boy chasing his dreams through the storms of a big city. Ethan didn't yet know how hard the coming days would be, but one thought burned in his heart. This city will recognize my hard work. And in the stillness of that room, he looked out the window one last time and whispered, "I won't let this light fade." As soon as Ethan stepped onto the crowded streets of the big city, a strange shiver ran through him. The towering skyscrapers, the glowing neon lights, the endless rush of people, it all seemed to stare back at him as if silently asking, "Who are you? Where did you come from? Are you ready for this city?" He tightened his grip on his bag and kept walking, but deep inside, a quiet voice reminded him that in these streets he was a stranger, utterly alone. This city, the one he had dreamed about so many nights under the quiet sky of his small town, was now right in front of him. But reality had a sharpness that his dreams had never shown. Outside a cafe, he paused for a moment. People rushed past him without even noticing. Some were lost in their phones, some laughing with friends, others adjusting their ties or keys as they hurried along. Every face seemed focused, every step fast, every person driven by a purpose only they knew. For a moment, Ethan felt like he had stepped onto a giant playing field, a game where the rules were unknown and every player already knew their place except him. He walked slowly through the unfamiliar streets until he reached a narrow alley where a small apartment building stood. This was where he would spend the next few months, a single room he had rented after countless online searches and long phone calls. Inside, the space was small. The walls were dull, the paint chipped in places, and the only window looked out over a narrow lane where trash bins stood in a neat row. But to Ethan, this wasn't just a room, this was his first base, his little fortress. He placed his bag on the floor, unpacked his neatly folded clothes, and set them in a corner. Then he sat down on the edge of the old creaky bed, took a deep breath, and whispered to himself, "This is my first day. I will win. No matter how hard it gets, I will win." As evening fell, the city began to change. The streets glowed with dazzling lights, cars honked in the distance, and music drifted from nearby shops. But despite the noise, an uncomfortable silence lingered inside his small apartment. Ethan reached for his phone and opened a picture from home. The open fields, the orange glow of the setting sun, and that old wooden bench where he had spent countless evenings dreaming of this very moment. His throat tightened, and for just a second his eyes burned with unshed tears. But almost instantly he shook his head, wiped his eyes, and reminded himself, this is not the time to be weak. This is the time to fight. That night, he climbed up to the rooftop. The city stretched endlessly around him, glowing and alive, like a living, breathing entity. The lights below flickered like thousands of silent stories, each one carrying its own struggle, its own dream, its own scars. Ethan stood there, letting the cool wind hit his face, and thought to himself, from today, one of these stories will be mine. These streets will know my name one day. The streets may have felt strange, but he knew somewhere among these unfamiliar corners lay the path to success. All he needed was to keep moving, to keep believing, and above all, to never give up. Because in this city, dreams didn't just belong to those who had everything. They also belonged to the ones willing to fight for them. Ethan had always been a simple-hearted and pure-intentioned boy. Growing up in the narrow, unpaved streets of his village, friendship to him was a sacred bond built on trust, sincerity, and sacrifice. If a friend ever faced a problem, everyone else would drop everything to stand by him. That's why when he came to the city with big dreams, he thought the people here would be the same, loving and genuine. But the city slowly taught him that behind big dreams often lie big deceptions. In the beginning, everything felt beautiful. The atmosphere wrapped in the city lights, polite faces in the office, and people who smiled when talking to him. Ethan felt like he had finally arrived at the right place, as if fate had truly sided with him. His hard work and dedication at the new office impressed everyone. Arriving first thing in the morning and leaving last at night became his routine. His boss often praised him, and his colleagues liked being around him. During those days, he met David. David was cheerful and talkative. From their very first meeting, they developed a good friendship. Having lunch together, roaming the city on weekends, or sitting over coffee in the evenings to talk about their dreams became part of their routine. Ethan felt that maybe in this big city he had finally found a true friend, someone who made his loneliness a little less heavy. But the reality was something else, and that reality slowly started to surface. Ethan began to notice that David only reached out when he needed something. Sometimes he would say, "Ethan, I need this report done quickly. You type fast. Please help me out." Other times, "Man, I need a good idea for this project. You're smart. Think of something for me." At first, Ethan brushed it off, thinking this was just part of friendship. But somewhere in his heart, doubts began to form. The full truth revealed itself the day the company announced a major project. This project, if successful, promised promotions and big bonuses for the team. Ethan poured his heart and soul into it. For days and nights, he worked late at the office, crafting a brilliant idea and a complete plan. On the day of the presentation, everyone gathered in the conference room. Ethan had just opened his laptop when David stepped forward and presented the entire idea to the boss, as if it was his own hard work. The room erupted in applause. Everyone was praising David, and the boss happily announced, "David, this is an excellent idea. We'll definitely implement it." Ethan stood in the corner as if the ground had slipped away beneath his feet. A dagger pierced his heart, but he said nothing. Maybe because he still wanted to hold on to the sincerity of their friendship, or maybe because he just couldn't accept the betrayal. After that day, an emptiness began to grow inside him. In the evening, when he sat on the rooftop looking at the city lights, he thought, was this friendship? Or just a game where sincerity is repaid only with personal gain? He remembered how, in his village, if someone went through hard times, friends would sacrifice everything for them. And here in this big city, friendships seemed to last only as long as there was something to gain. In the days that followed, David's behavior became even clearer. He only called when he needed something. Sometimes to have Ethan prepare a presentation for a meeting, sometimes to get data for a project, and other times to cover up his own mistakes at work. And whenever Ethan felt low or lonely, David never seemed to have time for him. One day, Ethan finally gathered the courage to ask, "David, do you see me as a friend or just a crutch?" David laughed and said, "Ethan, that's how the world works. Everyone needs someone for their own benefit. What's wrong with that?" Those words felt like a heavy weight pressing on Ethan's heart. From that day on, he decided he would no longer trust anyone blindly. He pulled himself together, hardened his heart, and threw himself even more into his work. He realized that in this city, relationships were often built on convenience and selfishness, and if he held on to his innocence, it would only break him. Time went on, and Ethan learned to judge the people around him. He stopped rushing to make friends. He understood that in this journey, genuine people are rare and most only come close when there's something to gain. The experience was painful, yes, but it taught Ethan a valuable lesson. On the road to success, not every smile is sincere, and not every hand extended toward you is there to help. Some are only reaching out for their own advantage. Ethan decided that he would continue to move forward in this city with hard work and his own principles. Now there was maturity in his smile and a strong belief in his heart that those who are genuine will reveal themselves with time and the rest will simply fade away. The darkness of the night had always been a strange companion. After a day full of noise and chaos, when the city's sounds faded and the streets were taken over by silence, loneliness would cast its quiet spell. For Ethan, these nights were special. In these quiet hours, he spoke to himself, whispered to his dreams, and tried to cradle the fears and hopes hidden deep within his heart. After his failure, Ethan spent many days keeping his distance from people. During the day, he went about his usual routines, but when night fell, he would sit near the window of his small room. From there, he could see the glowing city lights, as if success itself was calling out to him, saying, "We're here, but you have to fight harder to reach us." He would spend hours staring at the ceiling, sometimes thinking about his dreams, sometimes replaying moments of failure, and sometimes questioning himself, "Am I really made for this path? Is this city truly the city of my dreams or just an illusion?" In those quiet moments, his father's words would echo in his mind. "Son, dream big, but let your courage be even bigger." Those words would feel like a ray of light piercing the darkness, comforting his restless heart. One night, Ethan picked up a pen and his diary and began to write, "I have failed, but I refuse to accept defeat. This city is tough, its people are ruthless, but I can change myself, I can learn, I can grow. And one day this city will remember my name." Those words were like a promise, a vow to himself that he would not let the darkness win. In the stillness of the night, Ethan often visualized his dreams like vivid pictures. He imagined himself as a successful man, someone who had become an inspiration, someone who had proven to the world that giving up was never the answer. In those moments, he lived in the world of his dreams, feeling his future success so clearly that it gave him the strength to keep going. But those nights weren't just filled with dreams, they carried fear and uncertainty too. Sometimes Ethan cried in silence, letting his heart pour out its pain before burying his face in his pillow and falling asleep. Yet every morning when he woke up, a spark of new determination ignited within him, as if his heart whispered, "Don't give up. This journey isn't over yet." Those nights shaped Ethan. He no longer saw loneliness as an enemy but as a friend. In the darkness, he found his weaknesses, learned from his mistakes, and refined the clarity of his dreams. It was in those quiet, unguarded hours that a new fire awakened in him. The belief that silence holds power, that solitude can nurture strength, and that after every stretch of darkness, light is inevitable. Sometimes the greatest strength is found in the moments when we have silent conversations with ourselves. Loneliness can be terrifying, but it is often that same loneliness that brings us closer to our dreams. The darkness of the night had always been a strange companion. After a day full of noise and chaos, when the city's sounds faded and the streets were taken over by silence, loneliness would cast its quiet spell. For Ethan, these nights were special. In these quiet hours, he spoke to himself, whispered to his dreams, and tried to cradle the fears and hopes hidden deep within his heart. After his failure, Ethan spent many days keeping his distance from people. During the day, he went about his usual routines, but when night fell, he would sit near the window of his small room. From there, he could see the glowing city lights, as if success itself was calling out to him, saying, "We're here, but you have to fight harder to reach us." He would spend hours staring at the ceiling, sometimes thinking about his dreams, sometimes replaying moments of failure, and sometimes questioning himself, "Am I really made for this path? Is this city truly the city of my dreams or just an illusion?" In those quiet moments, his father's words would echo in his mind, "Son, dream big, but let your courage be even bigger." Those words would feel like a ray of light piercing the darkness, comforting his restless heart. One night, Ethan picked up a pen and his diary and began to write, "I have failed, but I refuse to accept defeat. This city is tough, its people are ruthless, but I can change myself, I can learn, I can grow. And one day this city will remember my name." Those words were like a promise, a vow to himself that he would not let the darkness win. In the stillness of the night, Ethan often visualized his dreams like vivid pictures. He imagined himself as a successful man, someone who had become an inspiration, someone who had proven to the world that giving up was never the answer. In those moments, he lived in the world of his dreams, feeling his future success so clearly that it gave him the strength to keep going. But those nights weren't just filled with dreams, they carried fear and uncertainty too. Sometimes Ethan cried in silence, letting his heart pour out its pain before burying his face in his pillow and falling asleep. Yet every morning when he woke up, a spark of new determination ignited within him, as if his heart whispered, "Don't give up. This journey isn't over yet." Those nights shaped Ethan. He no longer saw loneliness as an enemy, but as a friend. In the darkness, he found his weaknesses, learned from his mistakes, and refined the clarity of his dreams. It was in those quiet, unguarded hours that a new fire awakened in him. The belief that silence holds power, that solitude can nurture strength, and that after every stretch of darkness, light is inevitable. Sometimes the greatest strength is found in the moments when we have silent conversations with ourselves. Loneliness can be terrifying, but it is often that same loneliness that brings us closer to our dreams. In the quiet hours of the night, Ethan sat in the corner of his small room. The city lights shining through his window reminded him that every light hid a story of success, of failure, or of dreams buried under the dust of time. But tonight there was a storm raging inside him, a storm pulling him between what was right and what was wrong. The pain of past failures had broken him inside, but it had also planted an impatient hunger. Ethan wanted success, and he wanted it fast, no matter how hard the path might be. That's when certain people from the city started to get close to him, people who promised shortcuts to success. "Ethan, you have the talent," one man told him, "but hard work takes years. Stick with us and you'll see your dreams turn real in days." It was tempting. But deep down a voice kept asking, "Is this right? Do I really want to sell my conscience just to get ahead?" The following nights were torture. He tossed and turned in bed, hearing his father's words again and again. "Son, there are no shortcuts to success. The road of hard work is tough, but it's the only road that leads you to your true destination." But then images of the city's glamorous people would flash before his eyes. Those who climbed high through lies and deceit, now living as examples of power and wealth. One night, sitting on the cold floor of his room, Ethan mapped out his dreams. In front of him were two paths. Number 1, the path of honesty and hard work, long and painful, but clean and peaceful. Number 2, the path of deceit and shortcuts, quick and easy, but heavy on the soul. Ethan asked himself, if I choose the wrong path, will I still be the same Ethan who came here with pure dreams? Can I really let dirty money stain my goals? The struggle consumed his days and nights, and alone he began listening to the quiet voice inside him. And every time he closed his eyes, he remembered the moment he first stepped into the city, when his heart carried only hope, faith, and the fire of hard work. Then, one moonlit night, he made a promise to himself. I will choose success, but only through the path of hard work. No matter how long it takes, no matter how many times I fail, I will not sell my soul. The next morning, his heart felt lighter. He ignored the phone call inviting him to the darker path. Standing in front of the mirror, he smiled and whispered, Ethan, you've made the hard choice, and that choice will lead you to the right destination. That moment became a turning point in Ethan's life. He finally understood that true success is the one built with honesty and effort, no matter how long it takes to achieve. Some decisions define who we are. The easy path may bring temporary comfort, but the hard path always leads to respect, peace, and lasting success. The light drizzle had polished the city streets into a shimmering canvas. Ethan pulled up the collar of his jacket, trying to shield himself from the sharp cold breeze, and slowly walked down the empty lanes. Another day wrapped in the same weight, exhaustion, and quiet sadness. A few coins in his pocket and 1,000 questions in his heart. Did I choose the right path? Will my hard work ever pay off? Lost in his thoughts, he stopped in front of an old library. The place was usually abandoned, but tonight a thin line of light leaked through the cracks of the door, as though someone had lit a lamp after years. Curiosity nudged him forward and he gently pushed the door open. Inside, the scent of old books and the calm silence felt strangely soothing. In the far corner sat an elderly man, a long white beard, deep blue eyes, and a face so serene as if he had weathered every storm but never lost his peace. The old man smiled and said, Son, there's too much noise in your heart. Sit down. Perhaps you need a little silence. Ethan stared in quiet surprise. You know me? The old man chuckled softly. I don't know anyone by name, but I always recognize the eyes of dreamers. There's a fire inside you, but you need light to find your way. The words sank deep into Ethan's soul. He quietly sat down as though he had been searching for a moment to set down the burden he'd been carrying for years. Then, hesitating, he whispered, I chose the path of hard work, but it feels like I'm losing. People laugh, time is slipping away, and I'm still standing in the same place. The old man slid an ancient book toward him and said gently, Remember, son, time is never your enemy. We just fight against it without knowing how to wait. Those who endure they are the ones who win. The world notices those who succeed quickly, but it truly honors those who stay rooted to the ground while reaching for the sky. Then, looking deep into Ethan's eyes, he added, "There will be darkness along your path. People will call you a failure, but remember this, the brightest stars always shine in the darkest skies." It was as if someone had lit a candle in Ethan's chest. The years of fatigue suddenly felt lighter. For the first time, he told himself he wasn't losing. He was just on a journey, a long, difficult but beautiful journey. As Ethan prepared to leave, the old man handed him a small folded note. There was only one sentence written on it: "Light always stays in the hearts that refuse to fear the dark." Ethan stepped back out into the rain, his heart calmer than it had been in years. He looked up at the night sky and whispered, "I won't stop. Not until my dream becomes reality." Sometimes all it takes is one person, one conversation, or one fleeting moment to change everything. For those who lose their way, such a meeting is nothing less than a gentle touch of light. The night had grown deep. As the city lights dimmed, the silence filling the room wrapped around Ethan like a heavy blanket. Sitting by the window, he stared at the stars above, as if trying to find pieces of his past hidden somewhere among them. A weight of memories settled in his heart. That small village, the earthy smell of wet soil, the sound of roosters at dawn, and the sight of his father in the fields, sweating under the rising sun. He remembered running to school, glancing at his father as he worked tirelessly, breaking the soil with his plow even in the scorching heat. His face always carried exhaustion, but there was always a calm smile too. "Son, study hard, so you won't have to see these hard days." Then came the memory of his mother, those gentle hands that healed his pain with a single touch, those nights when she went to bed hungry but always left a full plate for him. Her prayers, her quiet sacrifices, all replayed in his mind, one by one, like a silent film that never fades. Ethan lowered his head slowly. "I forgot where I came from and the dreams I carry on my shoulders." He remembered the day he left for the city. His father pressed a bundle of old crumpled bills into his hands and said, "This is all we have, son. Make us proud." And his mother's eyes, shining with tears hidden behind a trembling smile, gave him the strength to step into an unknown world. Now, when the city's glitter made him feel alone, his memories called out to him. The mud walls of their little house, the faint light of a lantern, the smell of his mother's cooking, and his father's tough but loving gaze. A quiet vow rose within him. "I won't give up. Their dreams will not remain unfinished." That night, the stars felt closer than ever, like they carried the glow of the prayers his parents sent from that small village far away. The past is not just memories. It's a source of strength. The sacrifices parents make for their children become the guiding light of their journey, but only if we never forget them. The silence of the night filled the room, but inside Ethan's heart a storm was raging. The weight of failures, shattered dreams, and the ruthless realities of the city felt like they were suffocating him. Yet that night was different. Deep within, a spark had ignited, a spark that refused to accept defeat. He stood by the window, gazing at the glowing city lights. The hidden dreams between the tall buildings seemed to call out to him, whispering, "Rise, Ethan. This path was made for you. Just take the first step with courage." He closed his eyes and listened carefully to the voices that echoed from his past. His father's tired yet determined voice. "Son, remember, the destination only belongs to those who know how to rise again after falling." And the gentle prayers of his mother, as if they filled the room with light. Ethan slowly clenched his fist. "I'm not alone. Their dreams are with me." This realization descended into his heart like a ray of light, a ray of courage. It reminded him that hardships are not roadblocks but tests. tests that must be conquered to taste true victory. The next morning, he looked into his own eyes in the mirror. The same face stared back, but the gaze had changed. The broken, defeated Ethan was gone. In his place stood a man with newfound resolve. He had recognized the voice inside him, the voice that shouted, "This city didn't come to break you, it came to build you." That day he opened his old diary, the one filled with dreams he had written as a child. Every page was a promise, a vow, buried under the noise of time. He read those dreams again, felt them deeply, and whispered to himself, "I will not give up, no matter what the world says." That ray of courage began to reflect in everything he did. Where once he feared failure, now he embraced challenges as opportunities. When he was removed from an important project at work, he didn't complain. Instead, he worked harder. When friends turned their backs on him, he turned solitude into his companion and began to work on himself. That was the moment he realized, courage doesn't come from the outside. It's a light that already lives within. It just needs to be awakened. One evening, as he sat in the park watching the sun set, his heart whispered to him, "Maybe this is life's true lesson. Never fear the darkness, but learn to turn it into light." That ray taught him that no matter how difficult the journey, the destination always belongs to those who keep moving forward with courage. In life, courage is the force that turns dreams into reality. No matter how great the challenges, once determination and willpower awaken in the heart, no path remains impossible. In the last hours of the night, Ethan sat in the corner of his room. On the table in front of him were scattered papers, failed plans, unfinished dreams, and broken promises. But at that moment, he had decided that the story would not end here. The morning sun peeked through the window as if sending a message of a new life. Ethan looked at himself in the mirror. There was exhaustion in his eyes, but also a new spark shining through. He whispered softly, "If the world has knocked me down, I'll show them I can rise again." This decision wasn't easy. Starting over after losing everything was like building a new house with broken bricks. But Ethan knew that true strength lies in never giving up. He cleared his surroundings, removed the people who mocked his dreams, the memories that only brought pain, and the fears that kept pulling him back. The first step was small, a new plan, clean and realistic. He knew the journey would be long and tough, but now he didn't want to rush. Every day was a new page, every day a new opportunity. Even while walking through the busy streets of the city, his heart now stayed calm. Where he once felt loneliness, now that same loneliness gave him peace and time to think. The evenings that were once spent in despair were now used for planning and sketching out new dreams. There were many obstacles along the way, little money, few opportunities, and people who doubted him. But Ethan had learned to ignore all of that. Now his focus was only on one thing, moving forward. One day, sitting on that park bench, where he often went to think, he opened his notes and said to himself, "I used to just dream, but now I'm working to turn those dreams into reality. That difference is the first step toward my victory." This journey slowly taught him that real success isn't the destination, but the courage that makes you rise again after every fall. As months and years passed, his small steps started turning into bigger opportunities. Where people once ignored him, now those same people began to be inspired by his determination. But Ethan knew this was just the beginning. The real story was still waiting to be written. To start again, the first thing you need is courage. No matter what the world says, no matter how many obstacles stand in the way, the person who works hard with all their heart will find that, with time, success will come. In the silence of the night, when the entire city was asleep, Ethan stayed awake. The stillness of his room and the sound of the wind outside reminded him that dreams were never easy. The bigger the dream, the greater the test. And at that moment, a storm of hardships had surrounded him, testing his strength with every passing second. In the beginning, he thought a little effort and time would change everything, but reality was far harsher than he imagined. The city lights that once felt like symbols of hope now mocked him with their glow. Every morning he left with fresh determination, only to return empty-handed by night. The lack of money broke him the most. A few dollars in his pocket and a mountain of dreams ahead. The battle was tearing his soul apart. There were days when he had no money for food, surviving only on water to put himself to sleep. Yet a single voice inside kept whispering, "Don't give up. This journey isn't over yet." People's behavior became another silent war. Those who once smiled at him now avoided his eyes. Some were even blunt enough to say, "Ethan, this isn't for you. Go back." Their words pierced him like thorns, but he buried them deep in the ocean of his silence. The world's pressure weighed down every decision he tried to make. Knocking on doors for jobs and hearing no response, launching new ideas only to face rejection before starting. Each setback chipped away at his confidence. But Ethan knew that if he didn't fight this storm, his dreams would be buried forever. One rainy evening, sitting alone on a park bench, lost in thought, he asked himself, "Am I really capable of all this?" But almost immediately, another voice rose within him. Yes, because this pain is temporary and dreams are permanent. This storm wasn't just about hardships. It was the weight of people's judgments, the pressure of time, and the fear within his own heart. Every moment tried to break him, yet every failure quietly forged him into something stronger. Slowly he learned how to turn pressure into power. He spent sleepless nights planning, saved every dollar from small jobs, and reminded himself every day that this pain was simply the price of the success he envisioned. Through the city's noise, the fog of loneliness, and the raging storm of challenges, one thing never changed: his belief. The unshakable belief that one day the storm would calm and his dreams would finally take shape. The greatest storms of life teach us that dreams belong only to those who refuse to surrender. Struggles are endless, but those who face them as challenges and rise above are the ones whose names are written in history. It was the last hours of the night. The city lights glimmered faintly, but in Ethan's heart a storm was raging. Under the weight of failures, taunts, and endless obstacles, he had come close to giving up many times. But that night, something changed. He sat quietly in his small room, staring into the tired eyes reflected in the mirror on the wall, and whispered, "If the world won't stand by me, should I abandon myself too?" That question lit a new fire inside him. He realized that true strength doesn't come from others' faith or praise, but from the belief you hold within yourself. At that moment, a childhood memory flashed in his mind. His father's voice saying, "Ethan, even if the whole world turns against you, as long as you believe in yourself, nothing can stop you." Those words became a guiding light in his darkness. The next morning, for the first time, he stood in front of the mirror and made a promise to himself. "I am the hero of my own story. As long as I breathe, I will never give up." That promise became the greatest weapon of his life. Every rejection, every failure, every obstacle, he began to turn them into lessons instead of defeats. He celebrated even the smallest victories. His first paycheck, his first completed project, a single encouraging word from someone. Those little moments reminded him that the power of belief can move mountains. Slowly the world's attitude began to change. The same people who once laughed at him started to take his dedication seriously. But Ethan knew deep down that this change only came when he accepted himself, when he learned to truly trust in who he was. In the crowded city, in the chaos and noise, he was no longer alone, because his strongest companion, his own self-belief, was walking with him. One day, he said to himself, "True strength isn't in relying on others. True strength is seeing yourself even in the darkest times." Those words became the first step toward his new life. In life, you can lose everything: money, relationships, opportunities. But if you still believe in yourself, you have everything you need. Self-confidence is the power that turns dreams into reality. It was morning. A light mist covered the sky, and Ethan, as usual, woke up early for his small job. The day felt like any other, but somewhere deep in his heart, a tiny spark of hope was alive. For the past several weeks, Ethan had been doing an internship at a company. He worked tirelessly, day and night, without pay, holding on to the hope that one day someone would recognize his efforts. People in the office often mocked his quiet nature, some even ignored him, but he knew that silent hard work always pays off in the end. That day when he reached the office, his boss called him into the cabin. His heart was pounding fast, filled with both fear and hope. The boss smiled and said, "Ethan, the project you completed last night was highly appreciated by the client. Your training will start next week and this is your first paycheck." At that moment, it felt as if the world had stopped. In his hands was a small check, but for him it wasn't just money, it was proof of his very first success. As he left the office, tears of happiness filled his eyes. Walking through the busy streets of the city, he whispered to himself, "This is just the beginning. The real journey is still ahead." When he got home, he carefully placed his first paycheck in a small box, as if it were a precious treasure. That night, he called his mother, who lived far away in a small town. His voice trembled with happiness. "Mom, today I've taken my first step towards success. This is all because of your prayers." That night was very special for him. As he looked at the city lights through his window, he felt that no matter how big the dream, the path to it always begins with small victories. In that moment, he learned that every small step builds the foundation for a bigger destination. That realization filled him with a new strength, the belief that if he kept working hard, these small steps would one day turn into a great journey. Small victories are always the foundation of bigger successes. The secret of happiness is to truly feel every little success, no matter how ordinary the world might think it is. Ethan's life had started to change. Small victories were now turning into big opportunities. His projects were gaining recognition, people were beginning to know his name, and the boy who was once just an ordinary intern had now become the center of attention. But this new journey of fame wasn't as easy as it looked from the outside. At first, everything felt like a dream. People on social media shared his story, praised him, and called him a symbol of success. He was happy that his hard work had finally earned the place he had always dreamed of. But within days, he realized that everything comes at a price, and the price of fame is often very heavy. Where he once sat peacefully at the tea stall, lost in his thoughts, that calmness had vanished. People now gathered around him, took pictures, asked questions, and sought advice. Ethan smiled and responded, but deep inside, a part of him longed for solitude. Things had changed at the office too. Those who once ignored his efforts now wanted to stay close to him. But he soon understood that not everyone's intentions were pure. Some wanted to use him for their own gain. Some were burning with envy and started plotting against him. Witnessing this made his heart heavy. At night, as he stood by his apartment window, staring at the city lights, a question echoed in his heart. Is this really the dream I sacrificed everything for? The pressure that came with fame kept growing. Every decision he made was under the public eye. A single mistake could easily turn into breaking news. The weight of criticism and accusations pressed harder on his shoulders. Sometimes he wished he could leave everything behind and return to his old life, a life of peace, solitude, and dreams that belonged only to him. One day, as he was returning from the office, a little boy came up to him and said, "Ethan, I want to be just like you someday." Ethan smiled and patted the boy's head, but deep inside, a storm raged within him. He thought, if only they knew how many sacrifices it takes to reach this point. He had come to realize that fame was not a gift, but a test that demands resilience and strength every single moment. He promised himself that he wouldn't let fame control him. Instead, he would turn it into a strength that allowed him to stay true to his real self. The path of fame, as bright as it may seem, is equally difficult and challenging. To maintain success, humility, patience, and courage are the greatest necessities. After drowning in the ocean of fame, Ethan felt as if he had finally discovered the true purpose of life. Grand events, flashing lights, glamorous parties, and the crown of being called a successful man by the world, he had it all. But deep inside, there was a void, an emptiness that no amount of money or fame could ever fill. In the stillness of the night, when everything went quiet, he would sit in his room and wonder, is this really what I wanted? The golden walls of his apartment, the luxury cars, and the constant praise from the world couldn't silence the strange hollowness that echoed inside him, a silence that screamed that something was missing, something that had been lost along the way. One day he visited his childhood village, where the fragrance of the soil carried memories of the days when dreams were simple. The same narrow streets, the houses with broken rooftops, and the fields where he once planted his young hopes. Everything was still there, and the people, they greeted him just the same as they had when he was a boy, with no greed, no hidden motives, just pure warmth. An elderly man in the village said to him, "Son, wealth and fame are good things, but a person's true worth is in his character, not in his bank balance." Those words pierced straight into his heart. For the first time, he realized that no matter how high he had climbed, everything he had achieved was temporary. True peace was in a truth that lightened the heart, in humility, in love, and in the closeness of the people who cared for him. The glitter of fame had surrounded him with false friends and hollow relationships, but in the village, the laughter of children and the blessings of the elders gave him a peace he had been yearning for all those years. On his way back, as he looked out at the window, the breeze from the fields brushed against his face, and a single thought filled his heart. This is what real life is. Simplicity, peace, and relationships that are connected not by money, but by the heart. From that day onward, Ethan decided to change his path. He would still work, still chase his dreams, but this time while staying grounded in his truth, because wealth and fame are not everything. The true treasure is the peace that comes from sharing love and living with humility. Wealth and fame can make you great in the eyes of the world, but they can never make you whole. True happiness lies in honesty of the heart, the closeness of loved ones, and the grace of humility. Ethan's life had now reached a point where fame and success had earned him a place on the map of the world. But this position didn't come for free. Behind every success lies a story, and Ethan's story was written with sacrifices. Sacrifices that the world often never sees, but the heart carries the weight of for years. In the dark of night, when everyone else was peacefully asleep, Ethan would sit among the ruins of his failures, making new plans. He avoided friendly gatherings, skipped family events, and even put aside his own happiness, running only after his dream. He lost many relationships, friends who became upset with his busy schedule, moments that could never return. At that time, he believed these were temporary sacrifices, ones that would eventually transform into the fulfillment of his dreams. One day his mother said over the phone, "Son, we're proud of your success, but sometimes it feels like you've left us behind." Those words struck his heart like lightning. He realized how lonely he had become on the journey to success, and that loneliness was rooted in the sacrifices he had given so freely. As time passed, Ethan learned that sacrifice wasn't just about giving time or working hard. It was about leaving behind parts of his heart, pieces that could never be recovered. Behind every achievement were sleepless nights, restless days, and above all, the relationships he once held close. But the truth was, these very sacrifices had built the foundation of his success. Had he chosen the easy path, he might never have become the Ethan the world now knew. He came to understand that success is never free. Its price is always paid in sacrifice. One day, he wrote in his journal, "Success is the reward of dreams seen by sacrificing sleep." But remember, the true meaning of sacrifice is not the achievement itself, but the patience and strength you gain along the way. Now, Ethan understood that the real joy of success comes when you understand the lesson of sacrifice deeply, and when you carry the people around you along on your journey, because success achieved in solitude always feels incomplete. Sacrifice opens the door to success, but true peace of heart comes only when you remember the people who made sacrifices for you along the way. Fame, wealth, and power, they were all at Ethan's feet. Yet deep inside there was a void, a feeling that something was still missing. He began to realize that true success wasn't what the world could see, but the peace that the heart could feel. One day, at a small village event where he had been invited as the guest of honor, an elderly woman walked up to him. With trembling hands, she held Ethan's hand and said, "Son, your work changed my granddaughter's life. You showed us that with hard work and honesty, anything is possible." Hearing those words, Ethan's eyes filled with tears. It was as if for the first time he truly understood the meaning of real success. On the way back, he sat quietly, staring out the car window at the passing lights. He remembered how he had sacrificed everything for his dreams, yet never let go of his honesty and humility. And perhaps that was his greatest victory, that even after all the success, he was still the same Ethan who had once arrived in the city with empty pockets and big dreams. The next day, during a team meeting, he said, "Our real strength is honesty and humility. If we ever lose these two things, our success will lose its meaning." As time went on, Ethan chose a new purpose in life, to lift others up and show them the path he had discovered through his own struggles and experiences. He opened a community center in his city, a place where young people could learn how to turn their dreams into reality. One day, as he stood in that center watching children work with determination in their eyes, he whispered to himself, "This is true victory. Seeing others rise, giving them hope, and walking forward together with humility." Now, Ethan understood that the peace of success only comes when pride is set aside and gratitude and humility take root in the heart. Because a heart filled with honesty is the heart of a true winner. Real success isn't just about achieving big dreams. It's about keeping your honesty and humility alive while winning the hearts of others. When Ethan finally understood the true meaning of peace after years of hard work, towering skyscrapers, and countless achievements in the big city, one thought began to take root in his heart. Return to your roots. Find in the small town where his journey began, where the scent of the earth was tied to his memories, and where people still remembered him as the same Ethan, a boy full of dreams but with no resources. When he stepped onto the broken streets of his town after years, the entire community gathered to welcome him. Children shouted his name with excitement, the elders looked at him with proud smiles, and the young people stared in amazement, thinking, "If Ethan can achieve this, why can't we?" Standing among them, Ethan smiled silently. There was no pride on his face, only a unique blend of humility and gratitude. He donated books to the local school, medicines to the small clinic, and even established a training center for the youth so they could recognize their potential and gain the courage to dream big. One day, standing in the town square, he spoke to everyone. "I was once like you, dreaming but afraid those dreams might never come true. Today, I am here to tell you that if you make hard work and honesty your companions, no dream will ever be impossible." His words lit a fire in the hearts of the young. They felt a new strength awakening within them. To them, Ethan wasn't some unreachable celebrity. He was one of their own, an ordinary person who turned courage into his greatest weapon. Time passed, and Ethan's presence transformed the town. He was no longer just a successful man. He had become a symbol, a guiding light shining through the darkness. At night, sitting on the roof of his old home, gazing up at the star-filled sky, Ethan whispered to himself, "This is true success, to return, to become a guiding light for others, and to never forget your roots." True success is the kind that not only changes your own life but also brightens the lives of others. The one who turns their success into a source of hope for others is the real victor. When the people of the town looked at Ethan, they didn't just see a successful man. They saw a soul that had never lost its kindness and humility. His story of success had its share of glamour, but its true glow came from the purity of his intentions. Ethan often said, "Dream big, but never let your heart grow small. Wealth and fame are only paths, not the destination. True victory is when your dreams make other lives better." Over time, his words began to change the hearts of the town's youth. They started to carry not only the desire to earn but also the passion to serve. Small initiatives blossomed. Some began teaching children, others started training jobless youth in new skills, while a few worked to provide free medical care to the sick. In the quiet of the night, Ethan often sat on the roof, gazing at the stars, smiling to himself and whispering, "The real beauty of life is in seeing happiness on the faces of others. That is the purest and truest dream." The people slowly understood that joy doesn't lie in things that fade with time, but in the moments that bind hearts together. The secret to true success isn't just in hard work or talent, but in the honesty of the heart and the purity of intentions. Dreams truly come alive when they are fueled by a genuine desire to bring goodness into the lives of others. Thank you for watching, everyone. Ethan's journey from broken dreams to true success reminds us that no matter how hard life gets, hope and honesty always win. If this story touched your heart, make sure to like, share and subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss another emotional and inspiring story. See you in the next video.